Welcome back to Why Is That Funny? This was a viewer suggestion and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a great idea. We have two improvisers that I know a little about, and we've seen Vic Michaelis in the last episode that we just covered, but paired with Jacob Wysocki, I think the two of them are going to be quite character and motivation forward. We had last episode that was very much about game of the scene. I think we're going to get character game, and I think what these characters want from the situation is going to really be informing how the narrative develops. Let's get into it. So this is formatted, oh my god, this is formatted like a talk show.
Oh my god. Guest is there. We just gotta get out. I'm serious.
It's long form narrative improv. That's
We all
Vic.
have a story to tell. And sometimes those stories need to be shared with the world. Good evening. I'm Vic Michaelis, back with another edition of Very Important People. Please introduce yourself.
Howdy, little lady.
That's Jacob.
Hayes Steele.
Hayes Steele. Little lady. That's a they, them, thank you. Okay, right off the bat, just like the last episode we covered, we have so much being set up about these characters before they've even said a word. Let's check this out, because I guarantee you this is going to inform how they make moves. Yeah, I was braced for it, okay. That's hard to ignore. Post-nasal drip, you know, we're heading into summer. No, pair that with that white suit, that Miami Vice looking thing. I'm thinking drug kingpin, or we're gonna get drug references probably, at least. Also willing to take up space and sit and give a really seedy kind of characterization. And Vic, we've seen before, wants to be in control.
Gotta get out. I'm serious.
And is always caught short.
We all have a story to tell. I'm Vic Michaelis, back with another
So while
edition
Vic
of
regains composure,
Important.
let's talk about status.
Please introduce yourself.
Look at the difference in how these two are sitting. That's a great starting point to talk about status, especially in improv when you have just your instincts to guide you. Status is a massively powerful tool. We get to think about the importance that our character holds in relation to the other character or characters that we're on stage with. We have here a visual indicator of status. One person taking up quite a small space and one taking up a huge space. Now, yeah, Jacob's a big guy, but he could be sitting just as small as Vic is. But that's definitely not what's happening. We also can get nuance in status because, yeah, Vic is sitting small, but still with some composure here. I think status, probably the power play between which one of these holds more power in this scenario, this little world that they've created together, is going to inform quite a lot. So let's keep an eye on that as we go forward.
Not little. Lady, that's not.
And you're witnessing a man.
Not little or lady.
Billionaire.
Really?
Literally a few ticks away.
That's a nice watch.
Sorry I was early. My helicopter was fast.
So that's what's happening now.
Yeah. Did you have a hard time parking your car? We had to clear it out for my chopper.
Well, my car got towed, actually.
Interesting. Sorry to hear that.
Thank you for apologizing. Maybe I can borrow some of that money to get it out.
Hey, I don't do handouts. I don't get where I am at by helping everybody along the way.
Okay, this is moving so fast. We're establishing more about Jacob's character. So we have what might become character games. This is when something is more of an enduring thread. Like if you have what they have, it's at least more than half an hour, right? That's a long time to be able to take a character trait and turn it into a reoccurring pattern. So in Game of the Scene, which we had before, we have like a pattern that exists for a couple of minutes and then maybe a callback to it is brought back later on. Something funny that happened. You sing a song when you're not allowed to and you can't help but bursting out into it. Here, we're not talking about specific actions. We're talking about Jacob's character is boastful. He's rich. He is inconveniencing other people and he's not afraid of saying that and owning it. That's a lot to process, but it's going to make it really easy for him to not think about what's going to be funny for me to say next. I'm going to say whatever the fastest thing that comes to my mind that is to do with being rich, being boastful. And I think he said he's a soon-to-be billionaire. What does that mean?
Lady, that's not.
And you're witnessing a man who's about to become a billionaire.
Yeah, we're establishing something that could be a character game. It could also be a motivation. So as opposed to just what's going to be funny about this, we start getting to the character-driven stuff that I was talking about for the narrative. Like, how do I move events forward based around the fact that I want to hit my billionaire target? I'm going to be investing, saving money, buying and selling, whatever.
Borrow some of that money to get it out.
Hey, no.
I don't do handouts.
Okay.
I didn't get where I am at by helping everybody along the way.
Well, Hayes, I'd love to hear a little bit about how we did get to where we're at. Tell me a little bit about Hayes.
Hayes is the new me.
Hayes is the new you. Who was the old you?
Fuck him. He was a piece of shit. He was a little fucking baby with no heart and no drive. He was lost. He lived in Orlando, Florida. Now I live in Boca Raton, baby.
I take it back. We have a clear-cut motivation right here. And the amount, because he went like, I'm about to be a billionaire, whatever. That was like in bold print and triple underlined. I want to get away from my past self. That's what I'm hearing from that. That's the motivation. Guaranteed. That's what is going to drive how he makes his decisions for the rest of this episode, is getting away from who he was in the past.
He was lost. He lived in Orlando, Florida. Now I live in Boca Raton, baby.
Sort of 2 hours away.
Doug.
Yeah, okay. So Jacob clearly thinks in joke structure, most likely not consciously, And let me preface what I'm about to say by saying, if this is not your automatic way of thinking about things, if you even if you're someone that thinks that jokes come funny to you, but you find in scenes you're trying to think of a joke, like something intentionally funny to put in there, I promise you, you're slowing the scene down, you're getting in your own way. But the rhythm of what Jacob does here, I noticed it when Vic asked for some money and he went, hey, no. And here now, where he said, I lived in Orlando, but I needed to get out of there. That's a setup for a joke that's waiting for a punchline. His response to that was, I moved to Boca Raton, and Vic framed. We covered framing in the last episode. Go check it out. That's an unusual perspective because Boca Raton is only 2 hours away. Like, did he really get out of where he was before? That's a joke structure. You say something that sets up an association in someone's head. When you say Orlando and I need to get out there, the mental picture that everyone listening is coming up with is, okay, so he like ran far. He maybe went to like Hawaii or, I don't know, Middle East or something. Then you break that association, you subvert it and change the picture with something surprising and different. Like, what's the opposite of going there? Going basically nowhere from where you were. That's a joke structure. Again, he can do that. It flows naturally to him. If it flows naturally to you and you're already doing it, great. Don't try to do that though. It will slow things down.
I'm sorry, your name was Doug Duncan?
I don't even remember him. The cash has made me blind to Doug Duncan.
Seems like you have a couple of pretty specifics about Doug Duncan.
What do you mean?
That he lived in Orlando.
Uh-huh.
That he was poor.
Doesn't that sound like a fucking loser?
Okay, actually I said go back to the other episode. You know what, still watch it, but we're going to talk about framing now. So Vic is framing the character game that I want to get away from my past self by pointing out, he's saying all this stuff about Doug Duncan and then saying, I don't know anything about Doug Duncan. I don't remember. The cash
Has made me blind to Doug Duncan.
has made me blind to Doug Duncan. Vic says,
Seems like you have a couple of pretty specifics about Doug Duncan.
yeah. Vic is giving a release to that tension that's built up in us as an audience, where we can see very clearly that Jacob's character is quite fixated on what happened in the past. He's animated about it and is lying to himself, or something along those lines, by saying, I don't know anything about that. It's very clear to us that that's not true. It's clear to Vic as well. So Vic is pointing that out. And that is our hidden layer of communication between improvisers that lets Jacob know, I see what you've set up there. I've picked up on it as well. Let's make that into a thing. Whether that, again, it's very motivation and character driven. So it's less likely that in a format like this, it's over 20 minutes. If it was in like a 3-minute scene in a Harold on stage, then yeah, maybe they would just hit that boom, boom, boom and be done with it. But it's so big and central to a character that's going to be here for a long time that I think it's more going to be woven in character game style. But it's been framed. We've noticed that it's big. It's definitely happening.
What do you mean?
That he lived in Orlando. And that he was poor.
Framing.
A fucking loser?
Well, I understand. Hayes, I guess I want to
You mind calling me Hayes Steele every time you address me?
You want me to call you Hayes Steele
I
every time
the
I
way it
address you?
sounds, and it was expensive to change.
Okay.
Have you ever changed a name legally?
It was expensive to change.
Last name to Michaelis.
What?
A name?
Okay.
Have you ever changed a name legally?
My husband changed his last name to Michaelis.
Wow, what a cuck.
I said I didn't want to change
Oh,
anything.
God.
He said he wanted to feel closer to me.
It was his idea?
Yep.
I'm happy for you.
It was his idea. I'm happy for you. Let's take a look at some of the perspective here, some of the language as well. It was his idea. I'm happy for you. What a cuck! Laughing at him having changed his name for Vic. Pair that with this kind of gross persona, this very splayed out in your face. I think we're heading manosphere. Here's another prediction. Pair that with wanting to get away from your past self. Oh my God, this is not a 2026 episode, but if this gets into the realm of all this nonsense that's online now about taking control of your life away from women and all this stuff, that's going to be quite, God, I didn't even want to say the words. Let's see about that.
Tell me about Doug.
Doug's the complete opposite of who I am now. He had no confidence. He worked for other people.
Where did he work?
He worked at all kinds of places. He sold cars.
Ah.
He worked in kitchens,
Ooh.
doing dishes. He was sort of a bottom of the barrel employee. He worked at an Arby's for a short period of time, but he got burnt by the fryer.
Where did he get burned by the fryer? Okay, so.
Not where you think. It was just his hands.
Oh.
That's another joke structure, because at least 2 of those now, it's been a noise. Well, the last one was hey, which is a word. It was a long hey, but it is just something that gives you the vibe that he's going to go one way, and then it's another way. So he's like, making you think, yeah, it's going to be somewhere intimate that he was burnt. No. The way Vic is responding here, this could be seen as completely incidental, but I think this is adding to the contrast that we're going to see of where Hayes Steele is at now and how kind of unlikable he is versus that maybe he was more likable in the past. Vic's reactions here to the jobs.
Where did he work?
He worked at all kinds of places. He sold cars, kitchens, doing
Ooh, yeah, that's very intentional, I think. We're making his past life sound a lot nicer. So it'd be very easy for Vic to just let those brush by, but they're really putting some work in there to go the opposite direction, quite far the opposite direction, and seem quite, interested in that.
Period of time, but he got burnt by the fryer.
So it creates contrast.
Okay, so.
Not where you think. It was just his hands.
Oh, I see. That's exactly
And
what
I'm going to refer to Doug Duncan as a dead man, if that's okay.
Well, hey, you do what you got to do, and I'll.
And that's really digging into this. This is his character motivation for this whole thing, guaranteed.
He was a fucking scab.
It was a scab?
Not like a union scab. He was like something that needed to be picked and healed.
How did we end?
Oh my God, that's a really great turn of phrase. That character is applying it appallingly, but he's a scab? He was like something that needed to be picked and healed?
It was a scab?
Not like a union scab. He was like something that needed to be picked and healed.
Wow. That's some good wordsmithing right there.
How did we end up here?
Well, Doug Duncan happened to win a reality TV show called The Longest Journey, where he won $1 million for racing around the world.
Okay, and we actually have a clip of the moment that you won. So if we can go ahead.
So these are recorded afterwards.
God, I haven't watched this footage in years.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
The tie-dye shirt.
The longest journey!
His voice is different.
And my life's gonna change forever! Yes! 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 I don't have to be me!
Wow.
Oh, that's sad. Everything that we're doing for the last several minutes here is, it's all subliminal, right? Because we're not saying any of these things out loud. The things that are being said out loud are about how terrible Duncan was and how great Hayes Steele's life is. But all the context cues are telling us that he was great. So, I mean, these are tropes, but his voice is higher in the past. He's wearing like just a relatable kind of outfit. Although I think he might still be. Was he still wearing the trousers?
Yes!
He's still wearing the trousers. Because again, they're just filming this on the day straight after the main interview. And he's being smaller as well.
I won! And my life's gonna change forever!
You see how he's. Yeah.
Yes!
We're setting up all these tropes for the past version to be nice. So we're really building that contrast. And like we talked about in that last episode, comedy is like a balloon. You fill it up with grounding, with detail, with unusual things that builds a tension of stuff that we notice as an audience that doesn't quite sit right, so that when it's pointed out, the balloon pops and we get the release through laughter.
I don't have to be me!
Wow.
Wow.
So sad.
I invested the money. I'm actually a new sort of almost billionaire.
Yeah, I
This
can
is
tell.
new for me. I've only been living this lifestyle for about 4.5 months.
So what happened between the show
Okay.
and this moment right here?
I scrapped along as a piece of shit human being, knowing that my investment would pay off.
I wouldn't call somebody that works in a restaurant a piece of shit.
The people who hold the fabric
Again.
of society together, they're just in your way. They're there to suck up resources. They're there to get the fun for you, but it's my fun. It's my time. It's my turn.
I've sort of said similar things to the crew, and they're like, that makes you a bad person. And I said, I don't think so.
Don't let them tell you that. That means they're thinking.
I love that running character thread that Vic has. We have this real superiority complex thing going on there, and it doesn't work. Nobody likes Vic.
You're weak, all right? In a world of money, you better be a
Host Vic.
shark. You understand me?
Everyone loves real
The
Vic.
blood in the water, you find it. You feel the electricity in a room and you fucking put it out unless it's pointed at you.
Right. So what happens between 4 months ago and now?
Wow, what a look.
The man that we see today. I'm seeing some new.
You're only as old as your teeth.
Is that true?
Now, we had to point out the teeth at some point, probably. You know what? Improvisers talk about Chekhov's gun more than any drama student that I've ever met. Chekhov's gun is this concept that if a gun is seen on stage in the first act, then it needs to be shot. It needs to be fired by the third act, I think. You know, as a comedy principle, it does kind of make sense. If someone has crazy, like, veneer teeth, okay, lots of real people now have crazy veneer teeth. Sorry, half the people I know. But if it's a character thing that's being brought on and it's very visible, you have to mention it. We also have, look, we've got the suit, we've got the watch was already mentioned, we've got the hair, that hasn't been mentioned yet, but I'm pretty sure.
You're only as old as your teeth.
Is that true?
Yes, and these are the teeth of an 18-year-old. Plucked. Technically a volunteering effort, but I did pay the family well.
But like, what are the numbers looking like? Because what I'm hearing is you won the show, you
Yes.
started spending that
I won $1 million.
post-tax, pre-taxes.
After taxes, it came out to be about $475,000.
They took over 50%?
Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't have an LLC at
All of these things, as we go, Vic is framing them, and they're not turning into patterns. So framing, like I said, it's where you point out the unusual things so that you can start playing with this pattern. But I think we've got such a strong overall character game here for Jacob that we're not getting into these smaller games.
I'm actually a new sort of almost billionaire.
Yeah.
So Vic is framed, yeah, I can tell, when Jacob is saying, I'm a new billionaire. So that could be a funny game for him to go through a pattern of finding ways to see, like, to say, by the way, can you tell I'm a new billionaire? And Vic is going, yeah. It's been framed. It's habit. It's part of what we do when we're trained in that style, but it's not being played.
I'm 37 now.
You're 37?
Yeah.
We have Vic framing that Hayes does not look good for 37. that could be a game as well. Jacob goes on to say it's
Yeah, it's been
been a hard run. So we could get into how that's been hard and why, and move away from that and come back to it and show how out of health he is or whatever for his age. But again, I don't know that we
as soon as the
have yet.
saturates, I'm sure I'm going to be able to
So moving on to money.
And now, after some extremely smart investments in Chinese chemicals and private prisons, I have $887 million.
Whoa.
That's the big difference.
Private prison? Yeah. Different places?
Yeah. Oh, it's that joke structure coming back again. We expect either an answer or like a verbal avoidance. I'm not going to tell you, but we just get yeah.
Whoa.
That's the big difference.
Private prisons?
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah.
Different places?
Mostly in Central Asia, Azerbaijan, Afghanistan, the stands.
Or
yeah.
the United States, or those countries?
Okay,
so
don't
maybe
dig too deep.
Put a pin.
This is clearly a thing that is deeply built into Jacob. That kind of rhythm.
Dig too deep.
Put a pin in that.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
come get me.
What chemicals, right? What do they make when you mix them together?
What do they make when
Certainly
you mix
not
them
crack
together?
cocaine. Not cocaine.
Okay.
No, that'd be
Back home.
impossible.
Okay. I'm not.
Oh, there's the drugs. There's the drug reference.
Okay. I'm not hearing this conversation, right?
You're not.
Okay. So.
You're not gonna fuck this over for me. Anyways,
Scary. Okay, and now we've got the status. It's progressed from big and small to like scary and scared.
made a couple smart investments. I waited my time. I waited 15 years or whatever, right?
Yeah, 15.
What's the math on that? Someone do the math on that?
Somebody can do the math on that?
22 to 37. Somebody do the math on
We can do it
that?
quickly.
What's the math on that?
Somebody do the math on that? That's probably something, I think their teammates on stage, that's something that they probably do quite a lot, following the fun. If there is a dance, a song, a big statement that somebody makes, you can almost guarantee that Vic Michaelis is gonna jump in and start repeating it as well.
You know what's great about being wealthy, almost having $1 billion?
Tell me.
I don't have to do much thinking.
Hayes Steele.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I like the way your eyes light up. I like the way your eyes light up.
Really?
There's something about you that I know I can change.
These two are going so fast paced. I am having to jump back and forward constantly. Oh my God, that's rough.
Okay, well, I spent a lot of time going, who am I?
Okay.
I could be anybody you need me to be, you know?
Okay, great, perfect. We have Vic's character game for the episode. And this speaks to the insecurity that's at the core, that's established in what Vic, host Vic, has been in these episodes that we've looked at, is insecure. It comes out misguided very often as controlling, but it comes from a place of like, Vic is a character that wants to be loved. Vic is the type of character, absolutely, that will say to someone who they perceive as more higher status than them, I can be anyone you need me to be. That's so dark. This episode is so dark.
You should be who you wanted to be. Because you know Doug Duncan?
Sure.
Doug Duncan always fucking knew about Hayes Steele.
Really?
He was always deep down inside there. He was just waiting to come out.
So you spent all this time, there was 15 years there. You knew he was there. He was always coming out. What is the moment where you go, now is the time to strike?
Just to quickly interject, that's Jacob giving an angle for that game. So we have the character game itself, like I'm insecure, right? That's the character game. And a beginning of the angle from the Vic there is like, I'm open to being changed. And Jacob is hammering in a specific to that angle of, he's basically saying, do what I've done. Become an asshole.
You had mentioned earlier, you had friends, you had a partner.
Doug did.
Doug had a girlfriend. If
Yeah.
we can just pull up an old picture, and I'm seeing, in this photo, you two look very, very happy together.
I don't think she'd appreciate her face being on this program.
Okay, so we're gonna blur that.
We'll
We can go
blur it
ahead
out.
and blur that.
Love of Doug's life.
Well, tell me.
We'll fix that in post.
Her name was Jen.
Jen.
Jen was getting in the way. Jen was perfect for Doug in every fucking way. She put up with Doug's bullshit. She'd help him get up. She'd make sure that he ate a lunch. She was a teacher, but not only did she teach, she taught.
What? I'm getting excited. Did I say the word manosphere out loud before? I definitely thought it. the podcasts, this crazy. Is Jacob a future teller, or was I just so in my bubble that I wasn't aware as early on as this? Yeah, this is a character that is damaged by love, by like a bad experience, and has gone in like psycho direction. We're getting it out loud now. We're getting the actual thing that Hayes Steele is running from. The problematic part of, in his opinion, of his old persona.
He ate a lunch. She was a teacher, but not only did she teach, she taught.
What do you mean by that?
She didn't teach, she taught. She didn't run, she ran. Do you understand? There's somebody who's one thing and then there's somebody who's two. Jen was more than two.
3?
She was 4 things. She was my girlfriend, she was my Bobby, she was my best friend, and she was my confidant.
I see.
That's what every boy needs. He needs a girlfriend and a Bobby.
What happened between you and Jen? You get close to $1 billion, she starts getting in the way.
Oh God.
The cash. She didn't want to be in the big bucks.
I see.
She wanted
This is
a
so
normal
sad.
life.
Your legs are getting further and further.
I'm just getting finally relaxed here. I'm
I
finally
see.
getting relaxed,
Well,
okay?
Just point out what you see, what's obvious. The funniest, the biggest laughs that you'll get on a night in a show are generally the side things that are not the core drivers of your improv, but are just unavoidably going to be noticed by the audience. The audience notices it, it fills up that balloon with tension that I talked about, and you just say, your legs are getting further apart. Bang, that balloon is popped. That tension is released, the audience laughs.
I left her in the fucking dust, all right? The money started coming in, and it started looking hot, and I got a ring,
Right.
and I didn't put it on her fucking finger, and I kept it for me because I deserved it, because I beat a man in a race, and she didn't like who I was becoming.
Joke structure. I got a ring and I didn't give it to her.
And so I fucking left her in the dust. Just like I left Doug in the dust. And yeah, we had plans. We had big plans. Marriage. We had the name for the kid picked out. We had it all. The names for the grandchildren picked out.
You don't get to pick names for grandchildren.
That for a second.
No. You didn't take a sip of that water.
I'm not allowed to drink because of my teeth.
Framing back to back to back. Vic is incredible at this. Again, it's that UCB style training, that game of the scene, pointing out unusual small things so that they can get played. I'm noticing that Vic is doing this more. There was very little of this in the first chunk of this episode. We're getting to a point now where they're starting to really point out your legs are getting further apart. That's not how money works. I can't really remember what they said. But I think we're gonna get more into like smaller, like traditional game playing territory now. This is my rhythm pattern with my hands. Now that the character game is really set up, the motivations are clearly established. There's a lot of detail there. The scene is going to move itself forward. The characters are going to develop themselves. We can have a little bit more freedom to play silly games now. So we've got you drinking crazy, your legs are stretched out. You can't pick grandchildren's names.
We had the name for the kid picked out. We had it all. The names for the grandchildren picked out.
You don't get to pick names for grandchildren.
Let's break it down for a second.
No. You didn't take a sip of that water.
I'm not allowed to drink because of my teeth. I'm purely IVs.
I see.
Do you have cucumbers?
Cucumbers? Yeah, we can get you some cucumbers. Why don't we get somebody to run to the store for cucumbers?
Great, that's
Look
awesome.
at that. You don't have Jen, but who do you have now?
Well, you know, I've adopted a boy.
So you have a son.
I've got a boy.
What do you mean by that?
I was abroad in Poland and I hired a local pilot
Right.
to fly me out to Central Asia so I could adopt a boy from one of my private prisons.
He cannot help doing that joke structure, that setup, that create an image, and then that change the image. I was in Poland and I got a pilot to take me to Central Asia. He can't help it. Let's just think about what games smaller. Okay, so bigger ones. We've got I want to get away from my past. I am down. Like I'm entering the manosphere because of my failed relationship with someone that he clearly deeply loved. We have Vic's character game of I can be changed and Hayes wanting to make them a worse person. We have smaller potential games of like the teeth were pointed out, the legs being far apart, the drinking thing was crazy, and that is so, it's a very ungrounded place to start from, but we've had so much grounding of detail of the character that I can see that being the first move of a game that does repeat because it's so noticeable. We have cucumbers. I don't know, it feels weird, like sometimes you're throwing stuff out there on stage that might not come up again. I would be surprised if in an edited format like this, it didn't come up again, because otherwise it would just be like, that wasn't a laugh. I mean, it was, you might have got a laugh from the surrealness of it, but on its own, I don't know. So cucumbers, let's look out for cucumbers.
Babies are actually very valuable.
What do you mean by that?
You know, you take a crop of young kids and you set them aside for 18 years and teach them exactly what you need to know.
Like an army.
What to do.
Sort of like an army of babies?
Depends what you want.
Okay.
Maybe you want them to fight into another country. Maybe you're holding them so they can start a war. Maybe you've got an entire crop of boys that you're holding, educating, making them into perfect men to inherit your money.
Despite this face, some of the worst things I have said in my life have been in improv scenes. It is very cathartic. There's subtext, right? This is not something that you actively generally are thinking about, because active thinking in an improv scene is the death of the improv, just like trying to think about a joke. You don't want to be thinking about the subtext, but the subtext here, the things that he's saying, how terrible this person is justified in the fact that we are uniting against this character very clearly. Even if Vic is probably on the path to sycophancy, is probably gonna follow that direction of being changed, we don't like that he's like that. It's a commentary on that type of person. That's the subtext that makes it into a joke as opposed to just horrible things that you're saying.
Do you want to be one of my boys, Vic?
Are you asking me to be one of your boys?
I wouldn't come here on a helicopter if I wasn't serious.
Because I sort of have a stepdaughter and she sort of does.
I don't care about your boy.
Right.
Your boy.
I can pick its name.
You know what I would love?
It
I just sort of like.
was a callback to the picking grandchildren's names. I can pick its name. Your stepdaughter can be my boy and I can pick its name. That's beautiful.
Because I sort of have a stepdaughter and she sort of does.
I don't care about your boy.
Right.
That boy can be my boy and I can pick its name.
You know what I would love to be? I just sort of like to have a family.
Oh, that's so sad. I just sort of like to have a family. Look at their face.
So, in diversifying your portfolio, you purchased.
Moving on. Okay, this is something that we have to do in improv. Reground. As you start bursting balloons, I'm going to extend this metaphor. There's helium everywhere because it's been inflated, and you pop it and things start getting crazy, voices start getting higher pitched, you know, and we start lifting off the ground. You have to touch ground again. Otherwise, if you pop another balloon, that is just adding to an already existing kind of level of intensity. It's not going to be the contrast that we need to make it have such a big release for us. So after something as crazy as I'm going to be your boy, we've just had back to back to back. Your legs, the way you're drinking, cucumbers, money, I'll be your boy. We have, moving on, back to the interview.
I am now the owner and author of Dropout Studios.
And that's actually how you ended up on the show today. You purchased the land and said, this is mine now.
Yeah.
The owner and author.
Tighten things up. There's a little bit of fat on the studio.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? You're actually lucky because I talked to my
Sycophancy.
guys, right? I called up my boys. I said, Rico.
It's a rental.
Rico.
That gave me a fright.
Rico. I said, Rico, I'm thinking about.
If you want to make an improviser do something, tell them not to do it.
That's right. I called up my boys. I said, Rico.
It's a rental.
Rico.
That is Vic saying to Jacob, don't do that. And yeah, if you want to make sure that someone does that again, tell them not to do it. And what does he immediately do?
Oh,
Right.
Rico. I picked up the phone. I said, Rico.
4 of them.
I'm thinking about getting some land and turning it into a parking lot.
Huh.
And I looked at some spaces in the greater Los Angeles area, flew over from
Boca
on a
Raton.
private heli.
I really made a statement this morning in the parking
It's
lot.
loud, it's brash, it's in your face. You can't deny it.
It sort of seems like it did that to your hair.
Haha, yes. Chekhov's comb over.
Because, so your hair sort of
It's a
windswept.
cheap hit. It's a cheap hit to go for how I look.
No, I'm not saying, I think it looks
cheap
good.
hit.
I was just saying it sort of was like, the helicopter sort of went.
I'm gonna go ahead and have Rico call you. He's gonna give you a new bottom line, all right?
For how much we can spend on the show?
Yeah. I don't think you're gonna have all these fancy cameras. I mean, we have
This is the narrative developing.
shoot the show really.
And one of his character motivations of I want to reach my billion, and that is an offshoot of his core character thing. He wants to reach that billion to get away from being his old self, or get away from his past heartache. So we're probably going to see those dovetail.
Watch this. Can't do it. It doesn't work. So just end still.
You're
And so-
fired.
Just
He's fired.
No, so you're gonna. Well, we do need.
At the end of
that's
the day,
Cooper.
at the
Cooper
end of
actually,
the day,
you're staying. So
at the end of the day, I'd like your tripod packed up.
I think we're seeing the Donald Trump influence on this character come to the surface. You're fired.
well, have you done the tour of the studio?
You know what? I probably should get a lay of the land.
A tour of the
Let's
studio.
do it.
Okay, all right. So maybe and so
Wide
very
legs.
important for this part. Okay, and so I'm just gonna sort of. Here you go, sir. And ready? And okay. Well, okay. Sorry.
Oh my God.
Gonna, if we can just and there we go. And there we go. So there.
I can't walk on carpet.
So this is an accessibility issue, guys. So maybe let's get rid of the carpet and sort of then if you come through here.
I can't. I gotta catch my breath.
Okay, this is our coffee station. I get a little bit of.
That's a repeat. That's okay. Yeah, we're getting into these smaller games that were framed. That's a repeat of the "You're in bad shape for 37."
Get a little bit of this.
Yeah.
You want some coffee? Oh, because
Yeah, really
right,
good.
of course.
Really
Repeat of the drinking. Hello, game town.
tasty.
And so-
That's a
and
good
then-
brew. Who brewed that?
I feel like we're in a game town. I don't know. I'm just saying that as if that's a thing that people say. I've just made it up. We're in game town here, where they're going. I feel like they're taking this segment to just go back and explore all those old patterns that or those triggers that they've set up to become patterns, and turning them into patterns. Because it feels like they're exploring the space to find excuses to go coffee, to go whatever else. What have we covered? We covered legs.
I can't walk on carpet.
Okay, this is our coffee station.
We covered drinking.
You want some coffee? Oh, because
Yeah, really
right,
good.
of course.
Really tasty.
And so-
That's a
and
good
then-
brew. Who brewed that?
We got the money wad.
Just go ahead and get some cucumbers.
We got cucumbers.
I'm a boss at Mr. Fucking Miami.
Just like keep up the pace. I'm trying to help you here.
These could go. We could get rid of these.
Vic seems really on the line of wanting to change. Maybe okay, that's what this is. I think it's dramatic stakes, right? Are we going to see Vic accept the dark side, or are we going to see Vic try to help? Because that's what they're saying.
All right.
Just like keep up the pace. I'm trying to help you here.
These could go. We could get rid of these. We
Well,
could
no.
put these on offer up.
Offer up.
Offer up.
We could put that on offer up. We should put this on offer up. You don't need two. You don't need a toaster oven.
That was like the most condensed version of a game that you'll ever see. Literally just he went, we can put this on offer up. That's a funny specific. We recognize that that is a platform to sell things on. Vic frames it by saying on offer up, literally just the words back to him. And back to back, one line to the next, he says it 2 more times. And there's your pattern, you're 3.
We could get rid of these. We
Well,
could
no.
put
Fast
this on
game?
offer up.
An offer up.
We could put that on offer up. We should put this on offer up. You don't need two.
What was that, like 10 seconds?
And the microwave.
Actually, I insisted upon this because you can't put
So
pizza.
then we'll
we
put
do a
this on
pizza.
offer up.
Okay, so
Or go to
Callback.
the tour.
May as well
You
be.
need a break?
I'm good.
You're not an on-camera talent, so we need you sort of like you're not on camera, and so like
Need a
always
break?
like,
That was the health
oh,
thing.
Wonderful.
You're not an on-camera talent. I love it. Get out. All the way out the door.
Wonderful. So we're gonna sort of pop on through here.
Take these down. The labor laws. We're gonna get these out of there.
I've been saying that forever.
Yeah, I'm not non-union. I run a non. It's fully non-union.
It's not, except
it's
for me.
fully
So,
sweatshops.
yeah.
Fully sweatshops.
Can't say sweatshop. So this is sort of the whole.
It's a sweatshop.
No,
You let them out?
I locked the door and we opened it.
Okay,
at 5:30.
cucumbers.
Cucumbers.
Come back
Cucumbers.
on through.
That was like a roller coaster of just previous game moves. We had the one like micro nano game of Offer Up. But other than that, cucumbers and controlling the crew and coffee drinking and weird leg things, and money and making people your boy.
Hey.
Wow.
And so it's the carpet. And so I said.
Oh, and we've got legs. Again.
Flop.
Okay.
I mean, it's really... So they have producers, directors keeping track of what they're coming up with. So it's possible that they're being reminded of the things that they can come back and hit. But man, even still, that's masterful stuff to go through a laundry list of things that you've set up over the however long it took them to film that past section, 20 minutes, half an hour, and just hit them one after the other in a walkthrough. That's so cool. It's great.
You can't put that on the camera. You just took my sugar. And that's what that is.
We got the drugs.
Space. It's a really beautiful space.
You think so?
Explains the voice difference as well. He wasn't on drugs in the clip from the past.
You know what I noticed about the space?
I would love to hear.
You own it.
I own it?
You own it.
Okay, well that's very kind of
Not
you
on
to say.
paper.
I knew that was coming. Joke flow. You own it. Build an association. Somebody in ownership of something. Break the association. I don't actually mean you own it.
Metaphysically, you move through this space.
Metaphysically.
Well, you know, I sort of my name's in the mix for. Do you know Rachel Maddow?
Yeah, I heard of her.
Yeah.
It smells like corn and turkey soup.
Well, she's scheduled to get sick for 2 weeks. They have to schedule her illnesses.
Is shove it into once, right?
Well, that's it exactly. And so,
Wait for the winter.
Jacob is doing a really good thing that he was giving a lot of specifics earlier about his own character, but now that we're closer to and kind of peripheral currently to Game Town, he's falling more into that UCB style flow of somebody says a thing, other person adds specifics to it so that there is a little bit more detail. There's a little bit more of options and like shared things that have been mentioned to pull from to make the improv easier. So you're not having to think of new ideas. Someone says, Rachel Maddow, Hayes Steele says, she smells like vinegar and corn chips or whatever.
For 2 weeks, they have to schedule her illness.
They say she's scheduled to be off sick and he's adding to it.
Is shove it into one.
They shove all your sicknesses into one.
Well, that's it exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Don't
so,
wait for the winter. Don't wait for the fall. We're going to give it to you when we want.
Detail.
Do you have right now?
I did all the euthanasia for SeaWorld.
What? Like putting down like whales and things like that? How does that make money?
People have to show up. It's a big needle. It's a lot of gas.
I guess that's true. And I guess that's sort of a job a lot of people want to be doing.
Honestly, I'll be serious with you. That's probably the most fucked up thing I've ever done.
You're doing it personally?
Absolutely. Nobody else wanted to do it. That's why it was such a moneymaker. Nobody wanted to do it. It was a horrific thing to do. They're beautiful creatures. They deserve to be free.
Yeah.
But I had to kill them.
I guess you sort of did free them.
Here's the big lesson. Enough people protest, people will die. You think you're saving lives? You're not.
So
Oh my God. That's so funny. Enough people protest, people will die. Oh wow. This is dark. Is this the darkest episode? Okay, look, I've seen stuff to do with Katie Maravich. I know this is not the darkest episode of anything that's been on Dropout, but come on. Let's talk about justification for a second. Jacob is now getting into territory where he's talking about quite extreme things. So he needs to give some grounding to that still. It's not as big of a grounding as dropping this concept of euthanasia for SeaWorld altogether and moving back to just interview, but it is regrounding by showing that this character is not completely out of touch with reality. He's aware that it's a horrible thing to do, but he has a reason that makes sense to him, and some twisted version of ourselves can understand that logic that regrounds it so that when he leans into it again and says something crazy like, enough people will protest, people are going to die. Oh, it's a contrast again. It's not just we're already up there and we stay up there. It's brought back down. We got to kill the dolphins. I know that's horrible, but we have to. That's how the rhythm of comedy works.
you're doing it personally?
Absolutely. Nobody else wanted to do it. That's why.
That's the justification.
Nobody wanted to do it. It was a horrific
Makes
thing to
sense.
do. They're beautiful creatures. They deserve to be free.
Mm-hmm.
but I had to kill him.
I guess you sort of did free them.
Here's the big lesson. Enough people protest, people will die. You think?
That's Vic doing their own bit of justification as well. In a way, you did free them. But that's more like a character game move for them to be more of a sycophant towards Jacob.
You're saving lives? You're not.
So they were healthy? You were just putting them down because people were protesting?
People were like, we don't like this. We don't get this. Why are they in small tanks? We have to fix this. You
Grounding.
can't just put them back into the ocean. You can't put a king
Justification.
back into the rainforest. So we've got
Okay.
that, of course.
Right.
I do have a chronic farm.
What is a chronic farm?
It's a farm where we put people with chronic pain out of their misery. It's another euthanasia
Well,
game.
because you said chronic farm, and I was like, oh, maybe a marijuana
I don't
farm.
do
Yeah.
stuff. I only do snow.
You bought that?
That was another one of those jokes. He cannot help himself. Wow. Do you know why I think that is? He has a lot of short form experience as well, which is a lot closer to joke structure. Like, it's still so different from stand up, right? Where you pre-write the jokes and meticulously craft them. But it very much more short form when you're given a game like lines from your pocket, scenes from a hat, or rewind, or voiceover or something. All that kind of stuff is a lot closer to joke telling, literal joke telling. And from what I understand, Jacob Wysocki has a lot of experience in that short form world.
$927 million.
On the watch.
It's a standard watch.
Yes. Coming in.
Framing the watch.
It's getting closer and closer, baby.
Do you need to make a call or anything?
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
That's why I'm here. I don't really have anybody to share the good news with, and so I thought I'd broadcast it out into the wild. That's why I bought the studio. I didn't have anybody to share the good news with.
Let's talk about that for a second, because that's a move that might throw an improviser with some experience. Vic said, do you have anyone to call?
Millions getting closer and closer, baby.
Do you need to make a call or anything?
And as improvisers that know about following the fun, you almost always want to say yes to that kind of thing. You've been offered to make a phone call. Okay, so that would be a fun thing. Let's do it. It's a bit like Chekhov's gun. Like I said before with Vic and the chanting or the songs or like whatever, Vic's going to join in, follow the fun. Jacob has an override here, which is his character game, his underlying motivation. He's left everyone in his life behind. So it's gonna be truer to the character, and probably as a result of that, leave us with a bigger comedy high when it finally hits what's funny about that than the cheaper follow the fun comedy high would be. That's a lower peak. When you dig into the emotion and the character, it's a big comedy peak.
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
That's why I'm here. I don't really have anybody to share the good news with, and so I thought I'd broadcast it out into the wild. That's why I bought the studio. I didn't have anybody to share the good news with.
I
Sad.
bought a studio for friends.
Not even friends. I don't actually like any of you, and I don't think any of us would really hang out on a party.
Same. I don't, not for me, but just sort of the general consensus.
Yeah, it seems
Oh,
like a
God.
bunch of fucking softies and a bunch of pillow layers. You know what I mean?
Pillow
Pillow layers.
People who just want to sleep.
Sleep.
Yeah.
Sleeping.
But I thought
What is the meaning of life?
the meaning of life is to make so much money that you could be whoever you want, whatever you want.
And there's his motivation, plain and simple stated.
Who do you want to be?
Hayes Steele.
Are you sure? Because we actually found a video, and it seems like one that Jen took of you right prior to your breakup, and it just gave us some interesting insight to you.
Look at that fucking loser.
Morning. I love you so much. I hope nothing ever changes. You make me feel so whole.
How'd you
If they don't play, because it doesn't seem like that's a clip they're going to play for jokes, its place in this, even if it feels like it slows down the momentum for a moment, is building dramatic stakes. Again, it's that reaching the higher comedy peak that I talked about. This is probably building to our conclusion that if they pull it off, will be a big reveal, a big laugh.
find this video?
Doug looks so happy.
You know, babe, I don't need anything else. Me,
Really
you,
working hard to
and
entrench
a
that
dumb
now.
plan.
I don't need that. I don't want that. I never wanted that. That's not what I wanted at all. I wanted this!
Whoa!
I wanted to be Hayes. I wanted to be Steele. I wanted to be cold as fucking ice. I don't want to see that shit, all right?
Turn that off. We're gonna turn that off.
I don't fucking need that. Bad boy.
Bad boy! At least Vic got what they wanted, not being called little lady. That a lot of the stuff we see on like Dropout, these are people really at expert level of what they do. A big part of that is actual acting, and I hate to say it, including the places where a lot of these people train, acting really isn't a focus. But when you bring acting into it from your experience elsewhere or just from what you've developed on your own and actually commit to showing an emotion and not being afraid, that was not pantomime. I'm super angry about this that we see so often on stage improv. That was a channeling of a true thing of some sort from somewhere. And that is filling us up with this tension to hopefully be released.
The bad son!
You're a bad son. So, clear that. Hey. Hey. Oh. Hey, come on, Dad. Right back in there.
And there it is.
And we're just gonna, something is beeping.
And also notice how he could have taken the choice, because it's also funny if you have that dramatic switch between emotions. If he was playing that to like very realistic, naturalistic crying, that would also play. It would also be funny. But so that there's no confusion whatsoever, he's chosen to be quite caricaturesque about how he's doing the crying. And the teeth came out, like the whole thing was just a midnight to 6 on how he is portraying everything in that moment. And that releases that tension in the form of a laugh.
Please.
Okay, hey!
What?
You hit $1 billion.
Oh, hell yeah. Fuck yeah. All right.
Okay,
And there's another one, another flip.
Okay, so I'm Vic Michaelis.
If you go from 12 to
I'd
6,
rather be somebody else. Good night.
midnight to 6 to noon.
Chopper's getting cold, kid. Let's go, baby.
Okay, so I am coming. So, okay, well, hey, hold on. Nuts. So, nuts.
Just grab my cucumber.
Your cucumbers?
Money.
Okay, did somebody get cucumbers for my dad?
We have it. We have the whole thing. The cucumbers came back. Vic went full sycophant, took the dark side. They repeated every game. And they did that by being character driven and focused on their motivations of Vic wanting to be loved and accepted, basically, and Hayes wanting to escape his past. Man, that was pretty much a masterclass, and I loved that. Thank you so much for the suggestion. Please keep them coming. I want to know what else is good out there, and we're going to break it down. If you're looking for coaching, contact me. My socials are below. I can coach you in person in London or on Zoom anywhere else. Hey, doesn't have to be Zoom. It can be Teams. I don't know. And until next time, keep laughing.